to the Dynamic Duel podcast, a weekly show where we review superhero films and debate the superiority between Marvel and DC by comparing their characters in stat-based battle simulations. I'm Johnny DC.
And I'm his twin brother, Marvelous Joe.
And this is going to be a duel episode. We're going to be pitting the Green Lantern Alan Scott against Iceman. Now, we're doing this episode as a tie-in to our last episode when we reviewed the 2000 film X-Men, but also as a lead-up to our 200th episode coming this November, in which we pit the JSA, of which Green Lantern is a member of, against the Fantastic Four and friends.
Yeah, these two characters have a lot in common. They're both elemental, they're both basically indestructible, and they both can create constructs using their powers.
Yeah, so we'll see how creative we could get later on in the episode with these characters. Before that, we're going to break down the comic book movie news items from the past week, of which there is some exciting new stuff. You know, usually every year, Joseph and I dedicate an entire episode to Comic-Con. This year, we didn't get much news out of it, but we did get a big New Mutants panel that revealed an opening scene and new trailer for the film. From another virtual comic convention, Justice Con, Zack Snyder showed us a clip of Black Suit Superman and revealed a few more details about his upcoming Snyder Cut, as it were, that's coming to HBO Max. And finally, we're going to be talking about the first Helstrom trailer that also came out of Comic-Con at home.
And it should be noted that both Jonathan and I came off a camping trip this past weekend, so we weren't as well versed on the news as we typically are, so we may miss a few things as we break this news down. Because we literally just got back.
Right. What a week to plan a family camping trip. Idiots. As always, we list our segment times in our episode description, so feel free to check out the show notes if you want to skip ahead to a particular topic.
If you guys remember from last week, I mentioned that I did a guest spot on the Ready to Retro podcast. That's Ready, the numeral 2 Retro podcast, where I discussed with them all about The Matrix. And it's a fantastic group of individuals running that show. Max, Chris, and Chelsea. I had so much fun talking with them, and they put on a great show. So if you guys could go listen to it and see what I have to say about The Matrix movie, I'll put a link to their show in this episode's show notes. We want to give a huge thank you to DLX23 for leaving us a review on Apple Podcasts. Thank you so very much for the kind words, and thanks to everyone who has left us a review. If you guys haven't subscribed to our show, please do. It helps grow our podcast audience. And if you're already subscribed, please give us a rating or a review on whatever platform you're listening to us on, sharing this show with your fellow DC and Marvel fans. But with that out of the way,
quick to the no prize.
A no prize is an award Marvel used to give out up until the 90s to fans. Our version, the Dynamic Duel No Prize, is a digital award that we post on social media that Jonathan personally draws for those who we feel gave the best answer to our question of the week.
Last week's question was, what's another Marvel or DC character that you would like to see adapted into a horror film? And of course, this question was in relation to a teaser we got for the upcoming New Mutants Comic-Con panel. Now, our first honorable mention goes to Calvin John Della Merced, who gave the answer of Batman, saying that the character of Batman is supposed to be scary and that the film could show Batman from the eyes of the Gotham citizens' viewpoint.
Yeah, I think a great Batman film would incorporate some sort of horror element to portray just how scary the character is supposed to be to villains, which I think actually the Nolan trilogy did pretty well in his fight against Scarecrow.
Yeah, I was going to say, particularly Batman Begins. I think that's been the most successful film in showing how scary Batman could be.
Trenton Holland also mentioned Batman, as well as Deadpool, saying that that could be a great horror comedy.
CJ Kraft gave the answer of Man-Thing. Now, Man-Thing has already actually had his own horror film that was on the Sci-Fi Channel, I believe.
Yeah, but it needs to be done better than that, because that was just god-awful. It was a steaming pile of swamp shit.
Kind of like Man-Thing.
Jorg Bailey gave the answer of Deadman, and I love that answer, actually. Deadman is a really cool character. We're going to do a dual episode with him in a few months, and I think a movie about him would be amazing.
And possibly already in development with J.J. Abrams, as are some of the other Justice League Dark characters. We'll see. Speaking of Justice League Dark, Harrison Fox gave the answer of Sentinels of Magic, which is a team made of an assortment of magic-based DC heroes, including actually Alan Scott, the character we're going to be doing a duel with later on in this episode, as well as characters like Zatanna, Deadman, characters who are also a part of Justice League Dark.
Kenny B. Kenny said that there should be a Carnage horror film. Now, we're going to get a Venom vs. Carnage movie next year, which will be a sequel to the Venom film, but Kenny's saying that this should be its own horror film that's super violent and rated R, because Carnage is just one of the scariest villains out there, and I really can't argue with that.
And who knows, maybe we'll get an offshoot of the Venom movie that just focuses on Carnage. That'd be cool.
Yeah.
Aaron Paul gave the answer of Etrigan, who you can learn more about in our Etrigan versus Ghost Rider episode. And that has great potential. I love the character of Etrigan. I love his medieval backstory. And it doesn't get scarier than, a scary demon.
Jeremy Orr gave an interesting answer. He said that there should be a film based off of Mojo and Mojo World. Now, Mojo is an alien who rules the Mojoverse, which is a dimension where the most popular form of entertainment is this gladiator-style television show that he pits the X-Men in. And he looks absolutely horrifying. He's this globulous green alien guy with mechanical spider legs. It's absolutely horrifying and would make a fantastic show.
I thought he was yellow.
Yellow-green.
Yeah, I remember seeing him for the first time, on a trading card. His look has always freaked me out, for sure. Caleb Albers gave the answer of the Immortal Hulk.
And I really like that answer. I like what they're doing with the Immortal Hulk and kind of taking the character back to his, horror Frankenstein roots. Because this version of the Hulk is a version that's very cold and calculating and smart, and he only comes out at night, and he's pretty dang brutal in the way he deals with his enemies.
Brandon Estergaard and Sana Farhumad both gave the answer of Deceased, which, if you're not familiar with that title, it's a comic written by Tom Taylor, who also wrote Injustice, about the anti-life equation turning people and heroes into zombies. Brandon Estergaard mentioned that Zack Snyder would be the perfect director for that, considering his past work on Dawn of the Dead.
And I don't care what anybody says, Dawn of the Dead is the most amazing zombie film ever made. It's just a flat-out, straight, horrifying zombie film.
Yeah, it's pretty good. And I haven't read Deceased yet. I'm waiting for the whole series to be put onto DC Universe, but I love the artwork for it. It looks really cool.
Jeff Miles Jr. said that Raven from Teen Titans should be made into a horror film because her father, Trigon, is a demon and is literally made for this kind of movie.
Yeah, I mean, Raven is in the show Titans that's on DC Universe, and her dad, Trigon, made an appearance. That was pretty creepy. If they just dedicated an entire show or movie to her, I could totally see that working. Alex Fowler gave the answer of Moon Knight.
I love that answer because there are so many supernatural elements to the character of Moon Knight. He made his first appearance in a comic book called Werewolf by Night, where he fought Jack Russell, who is the werewolf character, and he had these silver weapons. His origin is also very supernatural in that he was allegedly raised from the dead by the Egyptian god of vengeance, and a lot of Moon Knight's villains are scary, so it could totally work. I would love to see that. And maybe even the Disney Plus television show that's coming out in a few years will have a very supernatural take on the character. Because you could kind of go both ways with him. You could go grounded or you could go magical. Mickey Madden Geehan said that they should make a Spectre movie similar in the vein of the Shazam Superman Return of Black Adam animated short.
And that was such a good short. Ever since I saw it, I've always thought that would make a great film, a good live-action horror film. The way it used the Spectre's powers was just so well done and so creepy. I would love to see that.
Yeah, it would almost be like the movie It, the way he played with his victims, except instead of, this monster terrifying children, it would be this monster terrifying bad guys.
Sold. Totally sold. Dustin Belcom gave the answer of Zatanna. And the rumor is that, again, J.J. Abrams is developing specifically a Zatanna film for Warner Brothers. So this one actually may come to pass sooner than later. The character of Zatanna is pretty gothic, and, she delves into a lot of the occult, so I think a horror angle for her would totally work.
Absolutely. Professor Calamitous said that he'd like to see a Hulk scary movie, citing the vibes that he got from the Hulk chasing Black Widow in the Avengers film. He also mentioned Flashpoint, and how that was kind of like a nightmare universe for the Flash, and you can make it even scarier.
Colby Henches gave the answer of Robin, saying that the film could focus on Tim Drake versus the villain Zaz, who's a serial killer, so I could totally see that taking a horror angle.
Yeah, Colby said it could take on the tone of the movie Seven, something like that. That would be amazing.
What's in the box?
Dorian Tyree said he'd like to see a horror film about the character of Ultron that takes place in a parallel universe where he was successful in Sokovia, dropping the city on Earth, eliminating all or most of life, and seeing Ultron take over.
Isaiah Bethune said that he would also like to see a horror film based around Ultron or the DC character of Doomsday. And you really don't get scarier than a character like Doomsday, who's just unstoppable and pretty scary to look at, too.
And the argument could be made that both of these characters didn't really get their due in the films in which they made an appearance, so they might deserve their own horror-based film. Christian Rubito gave the answer of the Lizard, the Spider-Man villain, which is a very Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde type character from the comic books and could totally work as a horror film, yeah. There were some elements of him that were pretty frightening in the Amazing Spider-Man film. And of course was another character that wasn't really served as much justice as he could have in the film that he was in.
Our final honorable mention goes to Kenneth McNeese Jr., who said that he would like to see a horror film based around the Dark Multiverse, which was established in the Dark Knight's Metal comic series from DC. And that was cool. That was really cool. It introduced like these twisted, corrupted versions of our favorite heroes. And some of them, like the Batman Who Laughs, are pretty creepy and might work pretty well on film.
But the winner of this week's No Prize goes to Paul Carmichael, Gabriel Bradham, who both gave the answer of Clayface.
Now, if you remember from our Clayface versus Venom episode, you'll remember that the original Clayface was an actor named Basil Carlo, who starred in horror films as a character named Clayface, who would go around killing people in a mask. When the film series was rebooted, the actor went around killing people in the same mask. It's a great premise for a horror film. I think it could be really cheaply made, and it could probably be set in the same film universe as The Joker, which in itself was a pretty horrifying film.
Yeah. This week's No Prize also goes to Matt Estes, who gave the answer of Marvel Zombies. Now, he was the only one to actually give that answer, which kind of surprised me, considering that Marvel Zombies is like the premier horror franchise within Marvel comic books. It's just a great series that they're actually adapting into a What If episode in the upcoming Disney Plus television series that I hope actually gets adapted into its own film. Fingers crossed, it's a long shot, probably never going to happen, but that would be awesome. And even though I'm a Marvel guy, I would still say get Zack Snyder to direct it because, again, Dawn of the Dead is just the best zombie movie of all time. And I will fight you on that.
Well, congrats once again to Paul Carmichael, Gabriel Bradham, and Matt Estes. You win this week's No Prize. If you, the listener, want a shot at winning your own No Prize, stay tuned to later on this episode when we'll be asking another question of the week. Just a quick heads up to all of our loyal listeners. When we first started doing the question of the week, we never imagined we would be getting the amount of quality answers we're currently getting. So in an effort to keep this segment kind of short and sweet for everyone, going forward, we're going to be narrowing down some of our more favorite answers into the honorable mention section. All of the answers you guys give are honorable, but going forward, maybe not all of them will be mentioned.
We're still going to give everybody who answered a shout out because we appreciate the time that you guys take in providing us with the answer. But look forward to that change in our next episode. And now that that's done,
on to the news.
All right, despite the fact that San Diego Comic-Con didn't happen this year due to the current coronavirus pandemic that's going on, we did get a pretty cool look at the upcoming New Mutants movie that's allegedly going to come out this August. The intro to this panel kind of made fun of the fact that the film keeps getting delayed, and at the end of the intro, it said that it is coming out August with a little like fingers crossed text message that appeared next to it. So we'll see, this movie may get delayed again, and the New Mutants curse will continue.
Yeah, with Tenet and Mulan kind of being put on hold indefinitely, we'll see if any major release is going to be coming out this year.
Oh, God, that's such a sad thought.
Yeah, for sure.
Especially since what I saw from this panel got me so amped up for the movie to come out next month. The most exciting thing that they showed was a heavily edited version of the film's opening that kind of ended with a new trailer for the movie. Now, the segment that they showed starts off with a voiceover by Danielle Moonstar Mirage, where she basically riffs on the tale of the two wolves by renaming it the tale of the two bears. And basically the tale goes, there are two bears that exist inside everyone. One is pure evil, one is pure good, and they're fighting for your soul. However, what they don't mention within this intro is the end of the fable that says the one that wins is the one that you feed.
Right, so if you feed into your hate, the demon bear will win.
Exactly, and I actually think that's a great metaphor setup for this movie.
Yeah.
The film opens up with Dani being pulled out of bed by her father and yanked out of the house, which is under attack by some unforeseen force. But her entire home basically explodes, and her father run through the forest where he leaves her hidden behind this tree, and he runs away to help the other people in her town, and he ends up getting mauled by this unseen force. She takes off running through the woods, away from this creature that's tearing down trees behind her. She trips and falls, hits her head on a rock, and wakes up in this mental hospital where she's being spied on by Wolfsbane.
That was creepy.
Yeah, it definitely comes off as very creepy when you first see Rain looking through the vent. But apparently, they've adapted the close relationship between Mirage and Wolfsbane in the comics into a romantic relationship in the movie. Possibly. It might just be hinted at. It's not quite sure, but we know that they actually get very close in the film.
Yeah, the director said it was sort of like the backbone of the story for the film, their relationship.
Yeah, which I think is a great angle. From there, Danny sees that she's being restrained to the bed, and we get into this trailer for the film. It's very visual effects driven. We get to see a lot of their powers. We still don't know too much about the story. Those who know the comics know that this actually isn't like this haunted hospital or something. They're still trying to sell it as such. And the prevailing theory revolves around Danny's powers, which is to create illusions. I hope that the movie still has some surprises. It definitely has a lot of cool superpowered action, it looks like.
Yeah, the spectacle of their powers, I think for me, is the biggest draw. I've been looking forward to this film for a while, even though I really don't know anything about the characters, because of how they're portraying all of their powers. And the cast is just amazing.
The cast is beyond fantastic. Besides the spectacle, they're definitely the main draw. Especially like Anya Taylor-Joy, who looks like such a badass when she says, "We know," to the line of "New mutants are dangerous."
And I love the way she says to the demon bear, "Let's play a game." The character of Magic will never be more perfectly cast than with Anya Taylor-Joy. Disney's not going to be able to top that.
I may have to agree. I don't think they'll even try to top that for a while within the MCU. Because they got to deal with the X-Men before they could set up the New Mutants,
Yeah.
But the way that Magic charges the demon bear and then like uses her soul sword to like vault herself off the ground and attack the demon on its back, that was just amazing. And like the last shot where she like is fighting the demon bear in limbo, that was amazing. We get a really cool shot of Sunspot using his powers. Again, he's not all black like he should be, but we've already talked about that. The special effects still look really cool. We see a couple cool shots of Cannonball using his powers, zipping around on a chain, and dashing down a hall. What was most exciting to me is something that we hadn't seen yet up until this point, which is Wolfsbane wolf form, which I wasn't sure how realistic they were going to go with the portrayal, if they were going to do something a little bit more of like a stylized werewolf or something like that. But the character looks like a straight up wolf, which is, probably what it should be. I don't know if she'll have her transitional form like she does in the books, but I'd imagine that looks pretty cool too.
Well, the shot for her transforming from a wolf into a human was pretty cool in the trailer.
Yeah, Maisie Williams is just such a great casting choice for Rain. There's another few really cool shots of these faceless beings that are attacking the kids. They appear to be the manifestation of Magic Sphere, because we see her fighting them most often with her soul sword. They are horrifying. They look ripped straight from Bill Sienkiewicz's horrifying artwork.
Yeah, they're like Slenderman or something like that.
Yeah.
Super creepy.
I love the idea of the New Mutants just having like this horrific fodder to just take out and destroy using their powers, building up to the main threat of the demon bear. We have come such a long way with the trailers for this film. Like, if you remember the very first trailer, how lacking that was really in content. Like, it had almost no special effects except for this shot of a hand being placed on this like washing machine that's on fire,
Yeah.
And here, this portrays almost an entirely different film that I was not even expecting. If this movie came out when it was supposed to, my mind would have been blown, and I almost feel like we've seen too much already of this movie. That being said, I'm more amped than ever to go see it.
The film looks like it's just going to be really good, and the special effects look like they're going to be something you want to see on the big screen.
I mean, at the very least, if the movie's not good, it'll still have this incredible spectacle.
And at the very least, it'll get you out of the house. Just wear a mask.
Yeah, wear a mask, people. Let's get out of this together. Let's get our superhero movies back.
Right?
But yeah, I think that does it for the New Mutants news.
In DC news, out of Justice Con, which was a fan-developed con, surprisingly, Zack Snyder revealed a clip. It was a really short clip of Superman in his black suit. Now, this was something I was looking forward to like all week. I was really bummed that I was going to be camping when it came out. When I finally got to see it, I'm not going to lie, I was pretty underwhelmed.
Oh, yeah. That's an understatement. Underwhelmed is an understatement. Like, I was even disappointed.
Well, I knew it was going to be a really short clip. Zack Snyder said as much when he interviewed with Grace Randolph from the Beyond the Trailer YouTube channel. But this was a clip that we had already seen before, if you've seen the deleted scenes of the Justice League special features.
And in that deleted scene, did he have his red and blue suit?
Yeah, he did. It must have been color corrected because it was red and blue. And the clip that Zack showed, still had not been color corrected yet. It was like overly lit. They still had to do, some post-production tweaking to it. So that's the original. But it just makes me wonder, I know Zack Snyder says that he hasn't seen the Joss Whedon version of the film. He probably hasn't seen the special features for it either. So he may not have known that we had already seen that scene.
Well, you think somebody would have told him at least.
He actually doesn't seem to be too much in contact with HBO Max. Like that teaser that he released of Diana looking at Darkseid on the cave wall. HBO Max didn't release that same clip concurrently. It wasn't until like hours later that they did the same thing. You think it would have been like united, but it kind of seems like Zack Snyder just kind of dropped it on everyone. Like, surprise, Zack Snyder is just kind of going rogue because he knows that he has the hearts of fans. Most fans. Some fans. This scene in the special features, we know Zack Snyder shot because Henry Cavill didn't have his weird like CG mouth. And Zack mentioned during JusticeCon that he won't be using any of Joss Whedon's footage in this film. He said he would rather blow up all the prints of the film than use any of Joss's footage. So that was interesting. There seems to be a lot of bad blood between Joss Whedon and the Justice League crew. Another thing that came up is that the film may not actually be called Zack Snyder's Justice League when it officially comes out.
Oh, really? Well, what is it going to be called?
We don't know yet. The official title of it, the format, and a teaser trailer will all be revealed at the DC Fandom, which is in less than a month.
Yeah, what day is it?
It's going to be on Saturday, August 22nd. And I'm really looking forward to that first teaser trailer.
Yeah, the end of August is going to be amazing. Between the Fandom and New Mutants coming out, it's like what we've been waiting for since the start of this whole pandemic.
What do you think of the black suit?
It's black. That's literally all I have to say about it.
Do you know why he wears it?
Yeah, because he is dead. He was buried in it.
No, he wears black because it absorbs more solar radiation. In the comic, it was a Kryptonian healing suit. I don't know if that's the reason for it in the movie, or if it's just something, more similar to like what General Zod wore. But I'm definitely curious to see the rationale behind him choosing the black suit. I've always been a fan of it. Not so much the long hair, but the black suit with like the silver gauntlets is pretty cool.
And that brings us to our question of the week.
What's your favorite alternate superhero suit of a Marvel or DC character that you hope to one day see on screen?
Post your answer to our Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, or email us at dynamicduelpodcast@gmail.com. We'll pick our favorite answer and draw that person a Dynamic Duel No Prize that we'll post to social media. In our last bit of news, at the Comic-Con at Home event, we got a look at the upcoming Hulu series Helstrom, which is based off of a Marvel comic book character. Now in the comics, Damon Helstrom is the son of Satan, who grew up not knowing that his father was actually the devil himself. He manifested these abilities of hellfire, and then once he learned who his father was, vowed to use them against his father's plans. In the comics, he also had a sister named Satana, who also fights alongside him. Here, they both appear to be good guys, albeit heroes without any sort of comic book sensibility whatsoever. Like, this show could be just about two normal people investigating the supernatural event.
Oh, kind of like the show Supernatural.
Exactly. If you know the comics, you know who these characters are, you know who their father is. It's kind of really creepy when they go visit their mother, and their mother's voice is just so bizarre.
Right? I did not like that at all. I did not appreciate it. I was like,
At
what?
the very least, the show is going to be creepy, you know? The fact that it doesn't have any of like the comic book elements in it visually is a little bit disappointing, so it feels very far removed from the comic books and only appears to be like casually adapted from the source material.
Yeah, there's not even any Marvel branding in the trailer anywhere.
No, but Marvel did help produce the show, so I assume that their name is going to show up somewhere in the credits. I do think that the actors playing Satana, who goes by Anna in this show, and Damon look a lot like brother and sister. I think the shot in this trailer that interested me the most was the family portrait that was hanging up on the wall where the father's face was like crossed out. Like,
ugh, yeah, that was super creepy.
That's faithful to the comics where they both didn't know who their dad was until later on in life, and it appears that they're going to learn who he is in this show while investigating the series of grisly murders. I think the cinematography is well done. It does look compelling to me more as a horror fan than it does as a comic book fan.
Yeah, absolutely. And in that regard, I would be really apprehensive to watch this. Because I'm a big chicken when it comes to horror films. And also, I don't have Hulu anymore.
You don't?
No, I got rid of it.
Well, that's too bad, but I'm definitely going to be watching it, and I'll probably give my thoughts on it, though we won't give it an official review on this show. Primarily because we made the decision to just review the shows that are on HBO Max and Disney+.
Now, the show Helstrom debuts this October, and I guess they're releasing all 10 episodes at once.
Yeah, that's awesome. I can't wait to binge it. It'll be perfect right in time for the Halloween season. But yeah, that's all I pretty much have to say about that. So let's go ahead and get into the main event of this episode, where we find out who would win in a fight between the JSA character, Green Lantern, and the X-Men character, Iceman.
Alright, so Green Lantern, Alan Scott versus Iceman. As we mentioned earlier, these are both elemental characters who create constructs, but that's not where the similarities end.
Yeah, both of them are nearly indestructible because their bodies are not essentially human. Interestingly enough, they both also have alternate versions of themselves that are gay. And they're both insanely powerful, capable of producing energies that cover entire areas.
Yeah, this should prove to be a fairly epic match. Now, if you've never listened to one of our Duel episodes before, the way we determine a winner between these two characters is by running 1,000 Monte Carlo simulations using the character's statistics. Now, what's a Monte Carlo simulation? Well, it's a probabilistic model used to determine outcomes through random sampling.
In our case, it randomizes statistics along a normal distribution, which is a bell curve, as a way to simulate the many variables that can occur during battle. The stat parameters we use are based on the official Marvel Power Grid, and we use that criteria to extrapolate the DC character stats. We've included some additional stat categories of our own, such as range, damage potential, and perception, in order to create a more complete and robust simulation.
Now, running these 1,000 simulations gives us a percentage of wins for each character, and we declare the one with the higher percentage to be the ultimate victor, given that they're more likely to win any given battle. No one character ever wins 100% of the time. Comics have shown that there's always a way for one character to defeat another. It kind of just depends who's writing. We feel our method falls in line with the precedents that have been established in the comic book stories.
Right, such as when Batman fights Superman and then wins.
Exactly.
Which, according to our model, he would only do 7.9% of the time. We use this method because it was the least subjective, most unbiased way to determine who would win. Of course, we're both heavily biased toward our respective allegiances, and instead of debating these matches forever, we just decided to let math decide for us. So there's no fan votes here and no relying on just feats.
Before we run the simulations, though, we like to break down each character's histories and abilities before improvising a scenario on how we imagine one of the 1,000 simulations we run would play out beat for beat.
Yeah, and I think it's my turn to go first this episode with the Marvel characters' history and powers, so let's go ahead and learn all about Bobby Drake, aka Iceman. Now, Robert, nicknamed Bobby Drake, was born in Hempstead, New York, to Madeline Bass and William Drake, an accountant. Ever since he was a kid, Bobby was prone to bouts of shivering and often claimed that he was cold. As a young, shivering teen, his mutant powers first manifested when he accidentally froze an entire swimming pool. His parents, worried about what would happen to him if people found out, told him to keep his powers a secret. Bobby was able to do so until he was 16 years old when he was attacked by a gang of bullies and had to freeze one of his attackers in self-defense. The scene frightened witnesses who believed Bobby was a dangerous mutant, and a mob started assaulting him before the local sheriff arrested Bobby and kept him in his cell for his own protection. Word of the event spread to Professor X, who was a mutant telepath who had just started a school in Westchester, New York, to guide young mutants in the use of their powers and help promote his dream of peaceful coexistence between them and humans. You can learn more about this in our Titans vs. X-Men Duel episode. He had his first recruit, Cyclops, rescue Bobby and have him join their cause. Bobby said goodbye to his parents and became the youngest member of the first generation of X-Men. He became close friends with his fellow teammates Cyclops, Jean Grey, Angel, and Beast, and was often the jokester of the group. Though initially he would encase himself in a thick layer of frost that looked like snow when using his powers, his training taught him how to smooth his appearance into solid ice. He protected humanity alongside his team against evil mutants such as Magneto, Blob, Sauron, and evil humans such as Juggernaut and Bolivar Trask and his Sentinels. When the original X-Men were captured by the sentient island of Krakoa, the team was saved by a new generation of X-Men, including Storm, Wolverine, Colossus, and Nightcrawler. With this new lineup in place, much of the original X-Men went their separate ways to pursue their college studies. Alongside his teammate Angel, Bobby attended UCLA, where a local threat banded the two together with Black Widow, Hercules, and Ghost Rider, and they formed a Los Angeles superhero team called the Champions. They didn't stay together for very long. Bobby later joined Beast's reformed Defenders team alongside Valkyrie, Gargoyle, Moondragon, Cloud, and later Angel. Bobby developed a crush on his teammate Cloud, whose superhero outfit consisted basically of small clouds covering her naughty bits.
What?
After one adventure, Cloud suddenly became a man with the same outfit, and Iceman was just so confused. It was later revealed that Cloud was actually a space being who could take on the form of either sex. Shortly after, their teammate Moondragon turned evil for a time and caused the Defenders to disband. Bobby and the other original X-Men then established the group X-Factor. After helping save the world from the evil mutant apocalypse, Bobby was kidnapped by Loki, the Asgardian god of mischief. He planned to use Bobby to empower the frost giants of Jotunheim against Thor and increased Bobby's powers to the point of no control. He was rescued by Thor and returned to the X-Men team, but had to use a special regulator belt in order to control his abilities. Shortly after that, the villain Mikhail evolved Bobby's powers so that he could turn his entire organic structure into ice, as opposed to merely encasing himself in ice. Bobby visited the telepathic mutant Emma Frost while she was in a coma after battling Sentinels, and Emma possessed Bobby's mind. She used his powers in ways he never had the creativity for, such as turning into new shapes, creating massive ice constructs, and traveling through water. Devastated that Emma was able to use his powers better than he ever could, Bobby turned to her during the Onslaught event, where she was able to help strip him of his insecurities over his gifts. Bobby was later assigned to go undercover and infiltrate the presidential campaign of Graydon Creed, who is the leader of a political organization called the Friends of Humanity that opposed all mutant civil rights. During a campaign rally, Bobby witnessed his father William stand up and oppose Creed, speaking out in favor of mutant equality. William was beaten nearly to death for this, and Bobby left the team for a while to take care of him. When he realized that his powers had begun evolving to the point where parts of his body couldn't turn back to normal anymore, he was forced to confront his own fears of being a mutant whose mutation couldn't let him blend in with normal society. Eventually, his entire body became unable to revert to human form, and he became entirely ice. He found that even if his body was completely destroyed, he could reconstitute himself from water vapor, and with this molecular control, could even prevent the mutant Sunfire from activating his heat-based abilities. Emma Frost eventually helped Bobby regain his ability to turn back into human, and he joined the X-Men on their new base in San Francisco. There, he fought alongside the team against the likes of Mystique, Mr. Sinister, the Skrull invasion of Earth, and even an assault from vampires, where Cyclops had a priest bless Bobby as holy water, and he used his ice powers to burn away the vampires.
That is fantastic.
Bobby left San Francisco and headed back to Westchester to join Wolverine at the Jean Grey School for Higher Learning, where he taught algebra. During this time, Beast used a time machine to bring the past original X-Men team to the present to help convince Cyclops that his methods of establishing mutant equality were too extreme, and you can learn more about this in our Beast Boy vs. Beast episode. The younger version of Iceman revealed himself to be gay and asked Bobby about it. Bobby revealed that he too was in fact gay and had hid it from others this whole time so as not to be persecuted for being both a mutant and homosexual. During the Inhumans vs. X-Men event, Bobby helped Storm and Magic create a new base for mutants in the dimension of Limbo in order to avoid the potentially fatal effects of the Terrigen Mists that had been released into the air by Black Bolt, King of the Inhumans, whom you can learn more about in our Shazam vs. Black Bolt episode. The mists were negated by the Inhuman Queen Medusa, and Bobby soon after joined all of mutant kind on the mutant island of Krakoa, which was recognized as a sovereign mutant nation by the United Nations. And that's his backstory. Powers-wise, Iceman has the mutant ability to cryokinetically lower his internal temperature and the temperature in his proximity, anywhere from the freezing point down to absolute zero, where all molecular motion stops. The freezing encompasses his entire body, including his organs, tissues, and cells, so that he is made entirely of ice, rendering him able to transform and reform his body at will. Iceman can use this freezing ability to turn any moisture in the air to ice, allowing him to create any manner of ice constructs such as ice shields, ice spikes, and ice bridges that he slides on to travel through the air. He could even create ice clones of himself and can travel through bodies of water at high speeds. Iceman can also direct his powers in the form of cryobeams, blasts, or waves to freeze other objects or enemies. And those are his powers.
Well, good luck freezing a being made of fire.
I mean, considering what he did to Sunfire, I don't think he'll have any problem doing that.
In a way, this is kind of like our Human Torch versus Killer Frost episode, except it's reversed.
Right, but Killer Frost was a being who created cold through the absorption of heat, whereas Iceman's ability is to lower temperature.
That's very true. Green Lantern is also nothing like Human Torch, now that I think about it. Let me get into his backstory. As the original Golden Age Green Lantern, Alan Scott is not a member of the Green Lantern Corps, though the origin of his power does stem from the Owen race, known as the Guardians of the Universe. To learn more about the Owens and the Green Lantern Corps, listen to our Green Lantern vs. Nova Duel episode. Billions of years ago, the Owens sought to tame the wild magic loose throughout the universe and conquer the necromantic entities who exploited it. After a long war, the Owens proved victorious, and in an effort to bring about order to the universe, they gathered all of its stray mystical energies and condensed them into an orb known as the Starheart, because the Owens hid the orb in the center of a star. Over time, the Starheart gained sentience, recognizing itself as the green flame of life. The Starheart secretly ejected a small portion of its energy, which bound itself to a passing comet nearby. It traveled the cosmos for eons, returning a portion of magic to the universe, until it crash-landed on Earth 2,000 years ago in ancient China. When it crashed, it collided with the power battery of the corrupted Green Lantern Yalin Gur, who had once protected Earth's space sector of 2814. A sorcerer named Chang reshaped the fused meteorite into an emerald mystical lamp, which frightened the nearby Chinese peasants who were tormented by Yalin Gur. The peasants killed Chang, and were, in turn, then killed by the lamp. The lamp passed through several hands through the centuries, from Kublai Khan to Marco Polo, until it eventually found its way to a man named Edward Billings in the early 20th century. Billings was a mental patient at Arkham Asylum, who was mystically granted sanity after he reforged the lamp into a railroad lantern. As fate would have it, the lantern eventually found its way onto a train, and in 1940, that train would perform a test run over the newly constructed Trestle Bridge, constructed by an engineer named Alan Scott, who was on the train during the test. The test was sabotaged, however, and an explosion destroyed the bridge as the train was crossing over it. The train fell, and everyone on board died in the wreck, except for Alan Scott. Through the fiery green flames of the wreckage, the Starheart called out to Alan through the Green Lantern, telling him its story and promising him the power to eliminate the darkest of evils. Alan returned with the lantern to his office and, at the behest of the lantern, carved a ring from a portion of it, which was able to wield the lantern's energy for a 24-hour period. Alan used the power ring to bring the bridge saboteurs to justice as the costumed hero Green Lantern, though during his initial foray, he also learned of the Starheart's inability, as the green flame of life, to affect anything living or grown from the green. Essentially, he had a weakness to wood. Alan was a founding member of the Justice Society of America, as well as a member of the All-Star Squadron, and fought alongside both teams in many wartime battles through the 1940s. He also fought Golden Age supervillains such as the undead brute Solomon Grundy, the immortal Vandal Savage, Icicle, and the villainous Harley Quinn, who, unbeknownst to Alan at the time, was his girlfriend/secretary, Molly Mayne. Molly eventually reformed and became an FBI agent, but Alan would later fall unknowingly in love again with a supervillain named Thorn, real name Rose Canton. Rose suffered from dual personalities, and the evil Thorn emerged during Alan and Rose's honeymoon, where she tried to set fire to Alan.
Dang.
Alan survived, and in her shame, Rose ran into the fire. Alan believed she died in the flames, but Rose survived, pregnant with his twin children, a boy and a girl, who, thanks to Alan's connection to the Starheart, were born with innate powers similar to their fathers and would grow into the heroes Obsidian and Jade, members of Infinity Inc. After reconciling with his children and marrying his first sweetheart, Molly Main, Alan traveled to the planet Oa with the other Green Lanterns from Earth, only to be defeated alongside the other Green Lanterns by Hal Jordan as Parallax. Parallax destroyed Alan's power ring, though Alan later learned that, over time, his connection to the Starheart transformed his entire body into the green flame of life, allowing him to wield his power and control his physical appearance without his power ring or the Green Lantern he used to charge it. He de-aged himself and adopted the new codename of Sentinel, becoming a founding member of a new incarnation of the JSA. After the JSA was successful in defeating Alan's son Obsidian, who had joined forces with the villains Mordru and Eclipso, Alan recreated a power ring for himself, returned himself to his elderly age, and retook the mantle of Green Lantern once again.
Why would he do that?
He didn't want to be the same age as his kids. He wanted to be the father figure of appropriate age.
Gotcha.
During the Infinite Crisis event, Alan's daughter Jade died, though she was resurrected following the Blackest Night event. Jade stayed on the planet Oa for some time after her resurrection, though while in space, she encountered the Starheart, which used Jade to free itself in its entirety from the star it was trapped in and travel to Earth in the form of an emerald meteor. Upon its arrival, the Starheart possessed Alan, and its presence on Earth drove numerous metahumans insane while granting them new magical and elemental abilities, causing worldwide chaos. Intent on conquering the world, the Starheart-possessed Alan was attacked while in an emerald city he created on the moon by a task force of superheroes intent on stopping him, which included his daughter Jade. Jade was eventually able to quell the Starheart entity within Alan, where it resided, dormant, as long as Alan concentrated on keeping it so. This constant concentration prevented Alan from altering or healing his physical form, and he was eventually paralyzed from the neck down by a villain named Scythe. In order to regain some mobility, Alan constructed a suit of armor made of Starheart energy, which, under his mental command, allowed him to fight once again. When a fallen god named D'Arkin defeated the other members of the JSA, Alan was forced to unleash the full energy of the Starheart, including his body, to defeat the villain. Though he was successful, Alan and the Starheart ceased to exist, and the JSA honored the hero with a funeral that had an empty casket. In the New 52 continuity reboot, Alan was an inhabitant of Earth 2, alongside many reimagined JSA members. He was once again the only survivor of a train accident after he had just proposed to his boyfriend Sam during a vacation in China. A green flame appeared before him, the embodiment of the Green, or planetary life force, which you can learn more about in our Swamp Thing vs. Man-Thing episode. On Earth 2, Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman died fighting Darkseid's forces, and the Green realized the planet needed a new champion, so it promised to imbue Alan with the energy of the planet to protect it from Darkseid's forces, as well as Grundy, the new zombie avatar of the Grey, or the planetary force of decay and rot.
Wait, okay, so the Earth 2 Alan Scott wasn't empowered by the Starheart at all, but rather by the power that gave Swamp Thing his abilities.
Right, but this version of the Green imbued Alan with energy as opposed to vegetation.
Interesting.
Alan chose his engagement ring, which was meant for his late fiancée, as a token through which to focus his power.
Does that mean that Earth 2 doesn't have a Swamp Thing?
Right, exactly. A Green Lantern, Alan Scott, is the Swamp Thing of Earth 2. Eventually, Earth 2 was destroyed by Darkseid, and the original Alan Scott has once again appeared on Earth Prime alongside other missing members of the JSA. As Green Lantern, Alan can channel the limitless energy of the mystical Starheart through his power ring, allowing him to create virtually anything made from the green flaming energy, including shields, armor, weapons. Almost anything can be created and is only limited by Green Lantern's imagination and willpower. The Starheart energy also allows Green Lantern to phase through matter and fly. His body is composed entirely of Starheart energy, making him essentially immortal and invulnerable. And that's Green Lantern.
Now, Alan Scott's abilities are similar to a regular Green Lantern, except all of his constructs appear to be on fire with green flame, right?
Right, because he derives his power from a different source. It's a little bit more wild, it's a little bit more mystical. So it's not as streamlined and refined as a standard Green Lantern.
Gotcha. Yeah, I like how this matchup is kind of elemental in that fire and ice type of sense.
Yeah, for sure.
Even though it's more of like a mystical fire as opposed to a real fire.
It's magic, like incarnate.
All right, so now let's speculate on how one of the 1,000 simulated matches will go. The winner is determined by our simulations, not this speculation, but it's fun to imagine how this battle could play out. We don't set any rules for this match other than the characters don't know anything about each other going in, except that the other character is a threat that needs to be put down. And they start off about 50 meters apart in an environment that has no bearing on the match itself, because we don't take stats for the environment.
Plus, certain characters have advantages in some environments over others, and we want these characters to win on their own merit. So let's get into it. The characters meet on the battlefield. Who goes first? I would think Iceman would go first because he's younger, he's a little bit more brash.
Yeah, Alan's just an old fogey. So Iceman definitely goes first. So he starts off by shooting this cryo beam right at Green Lantern and freezing him.
But before the cryo beam can reach Alan, he sets up a protective flaming shield in front of him, stopping the cryo beam before it reaches him.
Now, are Alan Scott's constructs actually on fire? Do they produce actual heat, or do they just appear to be on fire?
They do actually produce heat. There was one instance where Hal Jordan was able to feel the heat of Alan Scott's flame through his own protective force field.
Okay, so this cryo beam is freezing Green Lantern's shield, but also melting at the same time.
Right. So it probably creates like this huge like steam cloud.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of steam in this match, I have a feeling. It's going to get steamy. So Iceman's like, okay, so we have a fiery guy. I know how to deal with them. So he ice slides up into the air to get a better view of Green Lantern, and then he focuses his thermokinesis around Green Lantern, shutting down all chemical reactions that produce combustion, essentially negating Green Lantern's power.
Except he's made of like a magic flame. How is he going to do that? Like all of his organs, everything, they're all like a green flame. It's not like a scientific chemical combustion, it's magic. So Iceman may be cooling the temperature around Alan, but that just makes Alan burn hotter. So now he has this like aura of a green flame, and he just flies up to meet Iceman. And he creates this giant flaming axe and just chops the ice slide right in half, causing Iceman to tumble to the ground.
Okay, but Iceman doesn't get hurt because as he's falling, he creates this small mountain of ice beneath him and creates a snowboard beneath his feet, and he lands on the mountain and just snowboards down the hill.
Okay, well, Alan thinks that snowboarders are like reckless punks, so he lands on the mountain too on a pair of skis and gives chase.
Iceman 180s on his snowboard so that he's facing uphill right at Alan Scott, and he shoots all these icicle shards right at him.
The icicles bounce off of this giant battering ram's head that Alan created in front of him as he's charging down this mountain towards Iceman. And he attaches like these fiery booster rockets to his skis to make him travel even faster.
At which point, a giant wall shoots up from the ice mountain in between the battering ram and Green Lantern, and Green Lantern slams into the wall at rocket boost speed.
Okay, yeah, that's probably going to surprise Alan, but at the last minute, he's going to cause his body to phase through the ice wall. But that does cause him to tumble in his skis down the mountain.
Yeah, and Iceman like creates this crevasse or whatever beneath where Alan Scott has fallen, and Green Lantern lands into some giant ice spikes at the bottom of this pit.
Jeez, this mountain is so much bigger than I thought it was.
Well, the mountain's been growing as they've been, snowboarding and skiing on it.
Okay, cool. So Green Lantern is lying at the bottom of this deep crevasse, impaled, but then he remembers, hey, I'm made of green flame. I only bleed because I subconsciously expect to. So he just lifts himself up off the ice shard. The hole that's in him fills in with a green flame and heals him. Then he just flies back up out of the hole.
But before he gets up out of the hole, the crevasse slams shut in on him, and he's trapped in the middle of this giant ice mountain.
Personally, that's like my biggest nightmare. I'm super claustrophobic. But for Alan, he's going to turn this mountain into a volcano by heating up its core and just like shooting up through the top. And he's actually going to create the lava to melt the rest of the mountain. So now there's just water everywhere.
You're screwed now. Iceman changes it to turn it into this big flash freeze fog, kind of like all this water turns into mist around the entire environment so that Green Lantern can't see anything. He's completely blinded in this really thick fog. But Iceman can still feel where he is within this fog and appear anywhere he wants to within it. Basically, Iceman is now like omnipresent on the battlefield, and Alan Scott is blind. And at this point, just to ensure his blindness, Iceman freezes Green Lantern's eyeballs so that he can't see.
You mean his eyeballs made of fire?
Yeah.
I don't think that happens. But I do think that since Alan Scott, is surrounded by this dense fog, he's going to go on the defensive. He creates like his Kingdom Come like green armor and creates his huge energy flaming sword and stands at the ready.
And out of the shroud comes this big, giant Frosty the Snowman that's like 100 feet tall and grabs Green Lantern with his ice stick hands and brings him to his mouth and swallows him whole.
Well, he just swallowed one spicy pepper, my friend, and he's going to be regretting that later as Green Lantern just explodes at the bottom half of him.
All right, so this Frosty the Snowman explodes into like hundreds of tiny bits, and a bunch of those pieces land on top of Green Lantern's armor. And each one of those little pieces that lands on Green Lantern turns into its own mini Iceman.
What?
So it's like a bunch of shrunken Iceman running around Green Lantern's armor, slipping through the cracks and breaking it apart.
This just got like really surreal. This is like some David Lynch type shit.
So Alan freaks out at all these like tiny like Icemen crawling through his armor and stuff and like stabbing him.
And that's when Alan creates small miniature fiery versions of himself to combat the little Iceman.
Oh my god, it's 1,000 battles within 1,000 simulations. And then Green Lantern phases himself away from all these tiny little battles, and both Iceman and Green Lantern watch their mini-selves fight the other mini-selves, and they start throwing money down on the fights.
Yeah, but fire and ice money, right?
Right.
This is getting absurd. To combat this absurdity, Alan is going to send a giant massive meteor hurtling right onto Iceman as he's distracted gambling.
So Iceman is like turned into like a puddle of water. Probably even that evaporated. And the battlefield is kind of scattered. But one of the mini Icemen that survived the fight against the mini Green Lanterns grows into normal human man size, and Iceman is back.
So is Iceman just like this floating consciousness that could like just inhabit water?
Yeah, he can shift his consciousness through the element of water. Yes. At which point, this new Iceman, he sends out a wave of cryo energy that reduces the entire battlefield to absolute zero, the point at which molecules no longer move, including Green Lantern's molecules.
I think that only applies to matter, though. Green Lantern isn't made of matter, he's made of energy. You're gonna freeze him, and then he's gonna be like, oh, I'm only frozen right now because I subconsciously expect to be cold.
Yeah, exactly. And then Iceman just builds and builds upon this frozen Alan Scott until he's encased in like a block of ice that's a quarter mile big.
A giant block of ice that Alan Scott just teleports out of, right behind Iceman, and impales him with a sword.
Iceman like screams out in pain and then pulls on the surrounding moisture to increase his size so that he's like this large, brutish, Hulk-like monster with giant fists that have these giant ice spikes on his knuckles.
Uh-huh.
And his body morphs so that he's facing Green Lantern, and he starts just wailing on him, just punching him into the ground over and over, mercilessly, and in such succession that Green Lantern can't even do anything because he's just too busy getting his ass beat. And with his spiked fists, he's like puncturing all these holes into Green Lantern's body and kind of causing Green Lantern's body to like lose all of his Starheart energy from within.
Okay, well, Alan just uses that to his advantage then. He shoots out all of his Starheart energy at Iceman, evaporating every single water molecule in the environment, not allowing him to transfer his mind somewhere else.
But wouldn't shooting out all of his Starheart energy kill Green Lantern?
As long as Iceman dies first, I'm fine with it.
All right. I think that does it for this matchup. I'm going to say that there's still some droplet of water somewhere in this environment that's housing Iceman, and he'll eventually reconstitute himself one day.
As will Green Lantern.
Let's go ahead and take this matchup to the simulations and run the stats on these two and find out who would actually win. Well, that was an interesting matchup.
Yeah, these two characters are insanely powerful. There's really no way for them to hurt each other. So the victor really has to come down to see who's superior in stats.
Yeah, and that should indicate who would win a majority of the time, despite the fact that both of these guys are pretty dang hard to kill. And that factored into the statistics themselves. They both have extremely high durability and evasiveness. They can avoid being hit, and if they do take a hit, they're really good at resisting and recovering from damage. We said that Green Lantern was faster than Iceman and was capable of causing damage on a much broader scale. Even though Iceman's no slouch in that department, the ability to freeze things just doesn't have as much destructive potential as a Green Lantern ring.
Right, Green Lantern was also slightly ahead in strength, but Iceman came out on top in terms of perception, just because he's a little bit more capable of being aware of what's going on in his surroundings, thanks to his ability to shift his consciousness through water and moisture.
Everything else they were comparable in, including fighting skill and range. So I think this is a pretty good matchup. Who do you think is going to win, Jonathan?
I definitely think it's going to be Green Lantern in like a landslide.
Oh, so confident, are you?
Yeah, I think it's going to be kind of embarrassing. And even though only 2 people on our Instagram poll voted, me being one of them, they agree because 100% of the pollsters chose Green Lantern.
Yeah, you kind of posted that story in an area where you didn't have much signal, and I don't think the story actually posted to a lot of people.
Yeah, it must not have, because usually we get like 50 votes.
Yeah, it was hard posting on social media this weekend. Because of that fact, I'm going to say that way more people would have voted for Iceman.
Yeah, you're probably right. He is an X-Man after all.
And all those people who would have voted for Iceman were correct for voting with their hearts, but incorrect when it came to the results. Green Lantern won this one. Out of 1,000 matches, he came out on top 601 times over Iceman's 399 victories.
Nice.
So 60.1% to 39.9%.
I mean, not quite the landslide that I predicted, but I'll take it.
No, this is pretty much 50-50, you know?
What? No, it's not.
It's pretty close.
Iceman would lose 3/5 of the time.
Which is, that's pretty good. If you're offering me some pizza and you're saying you can only have 2/5 of this pizza, I'll be like, you know what? That's still a lot of pizza. I'll be happy with that.
Yeah, and I'll be happy with my 3/5 of the pizza. It'll be even more happy.
But in my heart, Iceman still won because he's just so cool. Literally. But that does it for this matchup, guys. Let us know what you thought about the results by writing into us at dynamicduelpodcast@gmail.com or by visiting us on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. You can find links to all of our accounts by visiting our website, dynamicduel.com.
And on our site, you could also find a link to our Patreon page where we offer a variety of bonus content, including blooper reels and special duel requests. Our patrons could expect a new episode this week on August 1st.
Yeah, look forward to that and check out our Patreon if you haven't right after this episode. Also on dynamicduel.com is a link to our merch store where we sell t-shirts, hoodies, stickers, and more with our Dynamic Duel No Prize artwork. And who will you be drawing this week, Jonathan?
This week I think I'm going to be drawing Alan Scott, Green Lantern. He has a pretty classic Golden Age costume, so it'll be fun.
Sweet, looking forward to that. That does it for this episode. In our next episode, it'll be another duel where we're pitting Robot Man from the Doom Patrol against The Thing from Fantastic Four. That's going to be a real fun one. I'm looking forward to that one. And that episode will lead into our Season 2 review of Doom Patrol on HBO Max. If you guys haven't been watching that, definitely watch it because it's just incredible.
Yeah, this season is really good so far.
It's a hilarious show. So funny, so funny.
We want to remind everyone again to please subscribe to our show if you haven't, or please leave a rating or review on your platform of choice. Sharing this show on social media or in person is also a big help for us.
We want to give a big thanks to our executive producers, Jace, Crump, and John Speas for helping make this podcast possible, and we'll talk to you guys next week.
Up, and away.
True believers.